Serial rapist and murderer Paul Bernardo has been denied parole. The Ontario man has been in prison for 25 years for multiple crimes, including the kidnapping, torture, and murder of two teenage girls, 15-year-old Kristen French and 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. Bernardo is designated a dangerous offender, meaning he can be kept in prison for an indeterminate period, but he can apply for parole. The victims' families say those attempts feel like another violation and loss. In denying the parole application, the board said he remained at high risk for sexual reoffending. Bernardo spoke at some length during today's hearing, saying he was a changed man and had a lot of empathy for his victims. Lawyer Tim Danson represents the French and Mahaffey families.
The family listened carefully to what Mr. Bernardo had to say. They found that his rant in response to his probation officer's presentation was deeply offensive. It was shameful, and it was designed for his personal perverted entertainment. It's clear that he came ready to give this long rant, and I think as a result, while it wasn't his intention, Mr. Bernardo himself became Exhibit A, which you could see for yourself. It was particularly disturbing that he thought it was appropriate and he was allowed to describe what he did to one of his victims prior to murdering her. That the fact that he thought it was appropriate to talk about it, and you all heard it, and you saw his facial expressions and the tones of his voice, that was particularly stressful. You know, this speech that he gave, that he's been subject to cruel and unusual punishment because of his lack of appropriate human contact, is really a breathtaking submission coming from someone like him. He, of all people, to talk about what's cruel.
The CBC's Ellen Morrow has more on this story.
The board members debated for about 50 minutes. They started their deliberations at 2 p.m. After a lengthy session questioning Paul Bernardo throughout the morning. This hearing began at 10 a.m. Paul Bernardo made an opening statement of about half an hour. Then there was about an hour and a half of questioning before those deliberations began, as I said, at around 1 o'clock. And we just got the decision that he's been denied full and day parole. During the hearing, Bernardo tried to make his case that he is not a risk to reoffend. Again, that case dismissed by the parole board as it was in 2018. A board member saying that Bernardo remains to be a high risk for sexual reoffending. We also heard during this hearing from the families of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey, as well as a woman identified as Jennifer, who is another victim of Paul Bernardo, a survivor of an attack by Paul Bernardo. And in the French and Mahaffey family statements, you know, the emotion is just palpable. Again, they had to go through this process less than 3 years ago, back in 2018, because Bernardo is eligible to have his parole status reviewed every 2 years. So this is something these families, as it stands now, will have to go through every 2 years. And just a few lines from the statement that was read by the mother of Kristen French, Donna French. She said, "This is a painful and difficult process, as there are no words that can capture the depth of our loss, anguish, and despair. It has now been 29 years since our daughter Kristen was brutally taken from us, 29 years during which we didn't get to see Kristen graduate from high school, going on to say start her own family and get to enjoy her children." Similar emotion in the statement from the family of Leslie Mahaffey that was read by lawyer Tim Danson, saying 30 years have passed since Leslie was taken from us, but the memories of that horrendous time are just as vivid today as they were then. There is no escape from us from this horror. And I mentioned the woman named Jennifer, who also spoke. She said, "Please don't be fooled by this. The arguments that Bernardo made during the hearing, was going to make during the hearing. If I am the only living survivor to testify here today, I beg you on behalf of all of us, please keep him where he is." And that is the decision the Parole Board of Canada made this afternoon.
The CBC's Ellen Morrow in Toronto.